1520 NBC Sports Radio Tri-Cities. I'm Matt Pauley.
Cone in transition. A three is good. That might be the dagger. That's
Well, that dagger put the Vols up against hated Vanderbilt by 10 late in the game. Tennessee knocking off the Commodores by the final score of 92-84, high-scoring game. Rick Barnes now saying the SEC is the best basketball conference. See there, he was quoted as saying that. That's food for thought. We'll have to, I mean, hey, Tennessee, they're ranked number 24. They were picked to finish 13th in the conference. Admittedly, Texas A&M is dropping like a brick, but nevertheless. So we've got that. I'll get back to the Vols. And also, I guess it should be mentioned, Vic Eaton is transferring away from Georgia. He's going to go to Washington. What, with Jake Fromm? Is that a real big surprise? With the recruits that Georgia are bringing in this year, is that a real big surprise? No. And he's going to a very good school. Sort of like Shea Patterson. I think he's actually trading up when he's leaving Ole Miss to go to Michigan. There you are. So I've been critical of Tennessee and their athletic program, especially what's going on with their football program lately. How can you not be? That's the worst program in the SEC last year, 0-8. I think it's a rebuilding project ahead for Jeremy Pruitt. One thing, though, that I thought that Vols fans had to be hoping for, big time, was that Nick Saban would leave for the NFL. Now, why he would leave for the NFL is another story. I couldn't understand why Nick Saban would want to leave the NFL for a circumstance. I couldn't understand why he'd want to leave for the NFL when he could win his record 7th national championship at Alabama. And one of the really stupidest things I've ever heard Colin Cowherd say is, when we think great coaches, we think the pros. Really? As I scratch my chin, they don't call it Don Shula football. They call Little League football Pop Warner football. Think about that. They don't call, I don't think that Bobby Bowden or Lou Holtz or anyone like that has a tough time being called a great coach. Now, I realize also in the case of Nick Saban, he was 15-17 in the pros, kind of like Steve Spurrier. Look what he did at Florida. Look what he did at Duke. Look what he did at South Carolina. Look what he did with the Washington Redskins. I really don't think Saban's style works well for a professional football player. I know he was a defensive coordinator for the Browns when Bill Belichick was a coach there, but the Belichick era in Cleveland was a failure. And frankly, I think that's where Saban gets a lot of his surliness from. But I just don't think it would serve him well in the NFL. It didn't the first time. I think he's a college coach. And why not be a great college coach? By the way, I was mentioning, do you really not think that Lou Holtz is a great coach? Look what he did with the Jets, 3-10. I mean, it wasn't, maybe if he had stayed with the Jets, who knows? But yeah, that wasn't going to happen for him. Some coaches have gone from college to pro. Tom Coughlin, he had some success at Boston College. Jimmy Johnson, obviously. Talking about Bob Seifers in the last game that this man ever coached. Jock Sutherland was the first coach ever to go from college to pro football, and he had success at both levels. Paul Brown, national championship at Ohio State, changed the game of football in the pros. Cleveland established the Cincinnati franchise. It can happen. But I always think that Brown's greatness is because he won not only in the pros and was such an innovator and created a franchise, 2 of them as a matter of fact, but he also did win in college. He won in high school. Ohio State and Massillon, these are, Massillon Tigers are a nationally known high school program. Hard to argue against that. But anyway, the other thing with Saban when you're making $11 million with Alabama, I know that, John Gruden isn't even making that. 10 years, $100 million. How are you really want to outspend the Crimson Tide for 66-year-old coach who's surly? I don't think so. Who was a failure in his first attempt? I don't think so. The thing for Tennessee, though, is that I know, and it looks like Mike Pruitt is the front runner there to go to New England, or to go from New England to New York and coach the Giants now. And, Saban was thrown out there. That would really wipe away the memories for Giants fans of Ray Perkins leaving the Giants to go to Alabama. There were a lot of Giants fans that just could not understand. Why do you leave the pros to go to the colleges? And a lot of people that could not figure that one out. But anyway, the thing that I thought for Tennessee fans is that if Saban were to leave, and I don't think he will, but if he were to leave, then the big fear that I think a Tennessee fan should have is that Jeremy Pruitt brings back the Vols, but in 3 years, say Nick Saban steps down, he's got his 7th national championship, and now who would Alabama hire? Oh, they'd hire Jeremy Pruitt. And why wouldn't he go? He's a former member of the Crimson Tide. He's from, why wouldn't he go? I thought the same thing that if Derek Dooley was a winner, why wouldn't he eventually go to Georgia? It's one thing about Tennessee right now with their coaching hires. It seems like they're trying to make them breeding grounds for other programs, Southern California or whatnot. And that's one of the reasons why the Vols have fallen so far. Now, if Saban somehow does go to the pros this year, and I don't think he will, but if he does, then yeah, maybe then there's a chance, for Pruitt to stay and have longevity in Knoxville if he is successful, because the other coach may be successful. But if that scenario takes place, that Jeremy Pruitt wins in Knoxville, like everyone hopes that he does around here, and then Saban, in a few years, retires, as he's bound to do because he's 4 years away from 70, who do you think Alabama would look for? And that would permanently put Alabama, or put Tennessee, under Alabama's thumb. Think about that. Trooper is weighing in here on Facebook Live. Says Dabo Swinney will be the next Alabama coach. Possibly. I could see something like that. And he's the one guy who says that he won't leave. But, what will he do at Clemson? And also, Dabo's stock, what will it be in a few years? Hey, it fell this year. Tough business, And I'll also tell you this, Dabo isn't the best game strategist, and he is oft criticized. Tri-City Sports Now.
Happy hour, Tri-City Liquor and Irwin. Always stocking your